Cool. Well, for those of you who, probably most people on the call, I imagine, know of Jack, but I'm just going to read the bio that is on the event page, because I think for me, it's quite interesting when I read it. I've come across Jack through his book and also through various trainings, first of all from the online training on the movies, Three Principles movie site. I was really struck by how Jack taught on the first training that I watched, that he has a practicality that informs the teaching of the principles. It can be extremely deep, and yet it also shares that practical level, which really I hadn't seen it in any of the other teachers when I was watching the movies. And then I was fortunate to do a day training with Jack in February last year, and on the day before that training, I asked Jack if he would come to Greece, and he said I'd love to. So I was very pleased about that. And this event that we're doing in Greece has come out of the dialogue about that. And so once that was underway, the topic of the event, the topic of the retreat, it went from a couple of options, and Jack said one of the options was how to improve or become more effective at one-to-one work, and that really struck a chord with me. So I really was, I wanted that one. So I'm really pleased that he's doing that. So I'm just going to read you what his bio. So Jack Pransky, Ph.D., is one of the most widely respected long-time Three Principles practitioners and authors. His book, Somebody Should Have Told Us, continues to receive acclaim for being among the most accessible, helpful, and popular introductory books on the Three Principles understanding. And it was the first book I read. And I think many people are in the same boat, that, that's the book you read, because it gives you such a grounding. Besides his pioneering inside-out prevention work, Jack has been working one-to-one with clients since 1999, but he says it has only been within the last couple of years that his effectiveness with clients has skyrocketed. Now that piqued my interest, to say the least. So, and that he clicked into a higher plane, and he believes he knows why. So for me, that is the kind of intro to this talk, or this, not talk, but this webinar, this interactive conversation. The fact that something shifted only in the last few years for Jack, and he can explain, or he can point to why that changed, that for me is really exciting. And in my experience of Jack as a trainer and a teacher, because I'm currently doing a training with him in Spain, to me, he's an exceptional trainer. I mean, he's an exceptional teacher. And the metaphor that came to mind this afternoon when I was having a nap, what I experience of Jack doing is that either in a teaching setting or in a coaching, with me as a coaching client, I experience Jack sort of gently getting my head and pointing me at what I am currently looking at. And for instance, he might be saying, you're looking at a rock pool over there. And then he'll gently get my head and he'll turn it and say, and over there's the ocean. So that for me is something that I experienced, that he's got a unique way of showing me what I am currently living in, or how my thinking is creating what I'm experiencing. And then he just gently says, and how would it be if you look over there? So that's all I'm going to say. And anything else will come either from Jack or from questions, or if anything springs to mind from anyone. As I said, please send me a chat message or raise your hand. Okay, over to you, Jack.
Well, hello, everybody out there in webinar land. It's great to be with you. I started getting nervous when Mick was talking. I was thinking, I can't live up to that. Now, I just want to say a couple of things. I mean, aside from the obvious of me telling Mick, when I found out he lived in Greece, saying, I've always wanted to go to Greece. It's like right at the top of my list. And all of a sudden I'm getting invited to Greece to do something. That's like, I love how things happen like that. And so I'm looking forward to this so much because of that, even outside of the topic. Where Mick lives and where the seminar is, from the pictures that I've seen, it's just hard to be there without the kind of feeling that we all are really seeking. Just being in the presence of that place is enough to put us where our well-being really is anyway. So I'm looking forward to it just as a vacation, a holiday, but at the same time, you know, being able to, and there's all that history there, and there's all that incredible art there, and gorgeous ocean, sea, excuse me, beautiful. What were you going to say, Mick?
No, I was just going to say that there's a few people on the call here who could vouch for the truth of what you're saying.
Great. So then the issue about the topic. Now, it's very interesting to me because I know that I'm not going to be able to describe what the difference is in what I see about one-to-one work, you know, coaching, counseling, even talking to a friend or neighbor. What the difference that I see in it now is compared to the way that I saw it before, because it defies description. And the purpose of immersing ourselves in a weekend together is just that. It's an immersion in a way of seeing it that was hidden from me before. And so what I'm hoping is that together we can immerse ourselves in what we're really seeing about working with somebody one-on-one. For example, I'll give you an example. When I first got into this stuff back in 1991 or 1992, I used to watch George and Linda do counseling with people. And I used to think to myself, how do they do that? You know, they must be so skilled And I aspired to have that kind of skill, even though, to tell you the truth, I never thought of myself as a one-on-one worker. I was always a community worker kind of guy. Yeah, I worked with people in communities. That was where my background was. That was where I did prevention work, prevention of all kinds of problem behaviors. And so I never thought of myself as doing one-on-one work with people. So I looked at George and Linda, and I just couldn't believe what they saw that I didn't. Just couldn't believe it. So as I said before, it's like, what kind of skill do they have? Now, what I realized fairly recently is that it has nothing to do with skill. It's not, one-to-one work with people is not a skill-based thing from the inside-out world. It's not a skill, it's an art. And it's an art because we see something. Like there's something that's visible to us that we are pointing to, pointing in the direction of what we're after with people. Like, why are we even talking to people one-on-one? We're after something. What is it that we're after? And that's something that it will be a wonderful thing to explore together. Because if we know what we're seeing and what we're after, then it's, well, how does that come about? And it comes about when we see something. It's just like when we're with a kid, if we have a child, teenager or whatever, and if we see the kid as up to no good, we're going to get an up to no good kid. What we see is what we get. If we see a one-on-one session with someone in a certain way, that's what we're going to get. But what if I guess I'll give you one other example. I've noticed in talking with some people who have learned the three principles and have been studying to be coaches with various teachers, one of many things that I've heard that seems to make me scratch my head is when I hear people say to their client, "You've got a choice in how you think about this." Now, if that's what we're seeing that we're up to, and we point ourselves in that direction, I think what we're seeing about one-on-one work with people is very, very limiting. Like that in itself, what we're seeing is a limiting factor in how far we can get with people, in how effective we are with people. Because I don't see that it's about choice at all. I mean, think about it. If you, let's say you're caught up in a problem and somebody says, well, you have a choice in how you see this. Do you really? I mean, if we could see it a different way, wouldn't we be seeing it a different way? Isn't it just kind of frustrating if somebody says we have a choice and we're looking at it from a certain level of consciousness and we can't see any other possibilities? And somebody says we have a choice. Well, what's that? What does that actually do to us? It could have the opposite effect than the effect that we are sincerely trying to get with people. So if it's not that, then what is it? And that's the kind of exploration that I'm hoping that we end up doing in this weekend together. maybe I'll stop now and just...
I just love that you brought that up, Jack. It was going to be one of my questions that I'd forgotten I had about choice, because I think for me, I mean, it was very early on in the training in Spain where you pointed out exactly what you just said to me when I was seeing the principles as giving us choice, or an understanding of the principles as giving us choice. And it's still something that's been rattling around in my understanding, where you have said, well, we don't have choice. We don't, you know, once we've seen it a particular way, that's how we see it. And it's only more recently that I'm beginning to understand that.
Yeah, and so if not choice, then what? Like, what are we, if it's not choice that we're pointing to? See, I would say that's not what the three principles are saying. I don't think the three principles are saying that we have choice in how we see it. I think the three principles are saying there are other possibilities out there that we don't see, that we could be open to. And the possibilities are infinite. In other words, we're seeing it one way, and out of a certain level of consciousness, and there are all these other levels of consciousness, and they're infinite. And the way we're seeing it is just one tiny little way out of all the possibilities. Now, if we can get someone to just be open to the possibility of all possibilities, it's like automatic hope that people are not stuck where they are now. And when you combine that with the fact that we are walking possibilities for new change in every moment. Like our thoughts can change. This is possible in any second. And our thoughts can change in any second in huge ways. Like Sid Banks, for example. One moment he's this totally insecure person who looks at the poor me aspect of life. And in another moment, he sees the three principles. I mean, how did this happen? I mean, God only knows how it happened. But the fact is that what happened to him could happen to anybody. In fact, what happened to him does happen to everybody, just not on that major a scale, just not on that mammoth a scale. Anytime we get a new insight that helps us see new, helps us see a different life, a different experience, that it's the same function that happened to Sid Banks, just not at that kind of a level for most of us. So.
Does anyone have any questions for Jack at this point? I can unmute you and you can ask him directly, or you can send me a chat if you...
In fact, please have questions or comments because I think I've just run out of things to say.
And then it's over to me to ask you questions. So please help me.
Or it will be a very short webinar.
Oh, yeah, Trevor.
Good.
Hi, Trevor.
Hello, Mick. Can you hear me?
I can. And Jack can, I'm sure.
Hi, Trevor.
Hiya, Jack. Good to see you. I was just listening to what you were saying, and if you're working with or you want to share this knowledge with somebody on a one-to-one basis, is having the ability to be able to move from one level of consciousness to another, to their level of consciousness, a gift that you could have, or something that would help in actually explaining, to be able to come down to their level of consciousness, if that sounds right. So
can I just say something to that quickly,
yes.
Trevor?
Yes.
I don't think we want to join them at their level of consciousness. I think we would rather have them come up to ours.
I agree, but I'm just thinking, is it best to get the message over at their level of consciousness so they would understand better, so they're more receptive to what you're saying by coming down to where they are in their life and speaking to them in words that they would understand? Because sometimes the three principles, it all sounds to people who don't understand it a little bit airy-fairy. And I'm just wondering different ways that you can unlock different minds to be more receptive to this way. So changing consciousness, I don't know.
Well, yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up. I'm sort of getting an echo, Nick. Is there any way that I can...
Can I just mute? I'll mute you, Trevor, just while Jack's talking.
Okay, Nick.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Now I don't hear myself. What you're saying is really a great point. Okay. We want to meet people where they are at. Absolutely, we want to do that. But I wouldn't say that we need to drop down to their level of consciousness in order to do it. In fact, from our level of consciousness, we can see where they are at better than if we join them there. So it's through deep listening, really deep listening, which we will do a lot of at the session in Greece, that we will know how and where to join them. Now, and it's really important what you're saying. We need to join them at the level that they're at in order for them to be able to hear. But we don't want to stay there for very long because we want to expand the way that they see. See, right now they're probably seeing in a really narrow kind of way, or they wouldn't be coming to see us. And they don't like it there, usually. But if they all of a sudden get brought to a higher level, then they themselves can look down at the level of consciousness they were at and realize the illusion that it truly is. Because why is it an illusion? Because they have inadvertently used their creative power of thought to come up with it as an experience. And consciousness comes along and makes that thought look absolutely real. So that's why they're stuck. They're stuck in the reality of what they're seeing. They don't realize that what they're seeing is their own creation. And isn't it amazing to be able to point people to their stuckness is their own creation? That's huge. I mean, when people truly see that and they realize that they don't need to be stuck anymore because they don't need to create that for themselves anymore, that's freedom. And so it's almost like they're being released from their stuckness or from their one way of seeing things. I don't know if I'm making sense, but the other thing I wanted to point out is you said that some people see the three principles in a very airy-fairy way. Now, I would say that responsibility falls on us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if, for example, if that's how what we say about the three principles comes across to others, then maybe we'd better look at how we're talking about the three principles. So it's our own grounding, really, in how we see it that leads to our grounding in being with somebody on a one-to-one basis, that we point them in a direction that is very, as Mick said, really, it's very practical to them. Very practical. And yet it's very spiritual at the same time. It's almost like you have to experience those both simultaneously. Like how practical it is and how spiritual it is. It's like, whew, getting hit by that. It's huge. So thanks very much for that, Trevor. Have a follow-up or?
Yes, thank you. Oh, there is a follow-up. Yeah, hang on. Sorry, I muted you too early. Go ahead, Trevor.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Mick. Yeah, I hear everything you're saying there, Jack, and that's wonderful. And I guess the bit that I was after, the information that I was after, is that deep listening. So no matter who you're actually speaking to, and I think this is the actual magic involved here, is that deep listening to different people, and depending on what they're saying, then you get a feeling of what level of consciousness they are at. And then what I have actually found, normally the words that you need to use to then show them the next level of consciousness, it just comes to you anyway, once you're open. So it was that deep listening. That was the bit that I was trying to understand around that. So that was very, very well explained. Thank you very much, Jack.
You're welcome. You know, it took me years and years and years to grasp deep listening. You know, people were talking about it like, you have nothing on your mind. You just take the person in. You listen to them like listening to music. You know, you don't think about it. And yet, I heard all that, but I didn't really hear what that truly meant. And it just kind of, I don't know, it just suddenly came upon me in a couple of different levels of what true deep listening was. And I would say that I don't know whether I can say this or not. I was going to say most people, but let me say this. I think a lot of people who are coming into the three principles these days are not really grasping deep listening as well as it could be grasped. So, like I said before, that's what I hope we spend a lot of time on at the 2-day seminar we're doing, because it's so critical, absolutely critical. So thanks again, Trevor. Okay, Mick.
I have a question for you.
All right.
Something that came up yesterday in our coaching session or feedback session was how you know when you're deep listening. And I'd like to hear that again. I know I've got the recording. I'd like to hear, and because I know there are various people on the call who are experienced practitioners, and for me, there's you know, I'm a participant on a course where you challenge me, and that's the contract we enter into, to be challenged. And for me, that's a challenging thing to how do I know when I'm deep listening? And you had an answer for that yesterday.
I don't know if I'm going to give the same answer.
No, I'm sure you won't, but I think it's an interesting exploration.
How do I know I'm deep listening? I feel it. You know, it's like I had an experience with Sid Banks where I heard something way beyond my intellect. And I was never the same after that. Deep listening is hearing beyond the intellect. And it's almost like, I've never thought of it this way before, but it's almost like vibrating at a different level. So we all take in the sounds coming from another person's mouth. You know, we all take them in somehow. But what do they get filtered through? You know, I was talking to somebody today. You know, it's very easy, for example, in a one-on-one session with somebody else, suddenly to have ego thoughts. Not on purpose, but it's like, uh-oh, you know, like, how am I going to take the person out of their stuff? That's an ego thought. It's got nothing to do with the task at hand. Because the task at hand is really just listening, getting curious, being puzzled, asking more questions, just to probe and find out what's really going on. Listening, asking questions, listening, asking questions. Just we don't know where to go. We are totally baffled about where to go. And we're just asking and listening. And then, boom, out of that feeling of nothingness, you could say, or a feeling of being so zoned in to the other person that suddenly we get something, like something comes to us out of our own insight. And it's new and it's fresh. And that's what we say. Before that, we don't say anything except asking questions to find out what's going on. So, how do we know that we're listening? Is when we're in that state of total tuned inness, so that we can feel the other person, and we just, I don't know what to say, and we just feel them, and we're totally out of the picture, and we may get something that comes to us, and that's where we need to go with them. Whatever we get, that's where we need to go with them. I don't know if I answered your question, Mick.
Thank you, Jack. No, I'm so glad I asked that question. No. I have a raised hand from Ivan. If I can unmute.
Hi there. Hi, Jack.
Hi, Ivan.
Hi. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah. A little bit about.
The coach.
Yes.
I have to say, Ivan drives a taxi cab, and he coaches people in the taxi cab. So he's a coach.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you. Interesting chat about deep listening. I remember we talked about it last year. It's about a year ago since we met.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's not long ago before I got a clue how to know when I'm in that deep listening. And to me, it's coming to that point where I can hear the truth in what my client or the one I'm one-on-one with. And when I know it's the truth, it's coming to me in a feeling of love and peace.
Mm-hmm. That's great.
Just recently came to me.
That's beautiful. I take it there's no question there. That's just a wonderful comment.
Yeah, just a sharing.
All right. I'll take it.
Thank you.
No, it did remind me of something, though. Today I was talking with this fellow who makes musical instruments. Wonderful guy. And he said that there are some times when he doesn't really know what he's going to do, but his fingers start moving almost without him thinking about it. Well, so it's kind of that. When I talked about the vibration before, it's vibration that is at a level beyond the intellect that when we, I don't even want to say tap into it, because we are it. We are it, and the only thing that can possibly get in its way is extraneous thoughts. So when we are able to maybe join with, I guess, is that energy, and things happen like fingers moving to create this thing, and it's at such a high level of consciousness that it doesn't look like thought, but it is thought still. It is thought. It's just thought at such a high level. It's that, you know, when people are, it's like at the highest peak, mind, consciousness, and thought are all one anyway. So the higher we go up the ladder of consciousness, so to speak, thought and consciousness, there's no, they just look like one. In a sense, if we can get to that point when we're with someone, imagine the possibilities of what can happen. And that is an incredible thing to me. So thanks for reminding me of that.
I have another question.
Great.
From Verena.
Hello, thank you. Hi, Jack.
Hi, Verena.
Well, I'm not quite sure where the question is in there. Maybe you can find one. It just, what you said in the beginning about us having no choice, really, ultimately, that kind of struck a chord with me. And, well, at least that's what I heard, that we don't really have a choice. We have unlimited possibilities, but not really a choice. And I think, well, that sounds amazing. And yeah, if you could speak a bit more on that, that would be lovely.
Well, it's what we don't have a choice in is how we see it. You know, I mean, yeah, theoretically, we really do have a choice, because if there are all possibilities, it means the choices abound. But if we can't see them, we really don't have one. And once we see it, we have it. But before we see it, we don't have it, even though it's really out there. So, because people can only see something at the level of consciousness that they're seeing it right now. Now, if they happen to get a new insight in 1 second later, they have jumped a level of consciousness, or maybe a bunch of levels of consciousness, and then they're seeing new possibility than they saw before. Then they realize, looking back, that they had a choice, but if you can't see it at the time, you just don't. So I don't know if that's any more helpful.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm just going to mute you again. And my friend Murdopoulos has a question.
Ah,
Jack.
Murdopoulos.
How are you? Yeah, that's a great name. How important is the phrase, "I don't know," to deep listening?
How important is the phrase, "I don't know," to deep listening? Well,
you know,
as a phrase, it means nothing, but what it's pointing to means everything. In other words, and I'm not trying to be flip by saying that, I'm doing a seminar in Spain about what we know limiting us inadvertently. That what we know gets in the way of what we could know more. Because what we know is never all there is to know. And so there's always more to know. And when we bring into a session with somebody what we know, we are inadvertently limiting possibility. So even if we go in, this is subtle now, even if we go in with the idea, I'm going to teach this person the 3 principles, we are automatically limiting where we could go together. Does that make sense?
No, totally, because not knowing is a neutral position. And I think in not knowing and aligning it to what you've said earlier, I think just what you've said, I think it's marvelous, because it aligns to what you're saying all along. Not knowing, you don't assume, you don't presume, you don't have preconceptions, and your mind is totally clear, and you're more likely to instigate a smile from the person who's talking to you rather than a grimace.
Yeah, let me speak to that too, because you know what you said there is really excellent. When we're able to elicit a smile from the other person, we know that we're in the, I hate to use the word process, but I don't know what else word to use right now. We're in the process of gaining rapport with the person. And gaining rapport with the person, like the person comes in with all this stuff on their mind. They have a typical way of seeing the world, and it's got them to wherever they are now in life. And usually, if they're coming to see us, they're stuck with something or other. Okay. Now, when we build rapport with somebody, that tends to just loosen its grip a little bit. We know that the only way in the inside-out world, we know that the only way change can happen is through new insight. And we can't make insight happen. So all we're left with is, how can the mind be prepared enough that's not what I want to say. How can the mind be in the state where it has the best chance of getting new insights? And that's when the mind relaxes, quiets down, clears, which allows new insight to come. So as long as people are holding this on their mind, they're not letting new insight come. And the idea of just being with someone in a way that they relax with us is a way of loosening that grip, which means that there's a better chance for them getting new insights and therefore seeing in a whole new way. So thank you for that, Murdo, from the Scottish Greek.
Thank you very much.
I have a question that's just come to mind, Jack. You've been teaching the 3 principles to groups for quite a while, and from my understanding, this is the first time you've taught one-to-one.
It's the first time I've taught one-on-one stuff in a group.
Right. That's kind of what I mean. That's kind of what I mean. Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Why now? I mean, what?
Well, so it's only been a couple of years since I've seen that I just see it new. So my own ability, I guess you could say, to be effective with people has really risen. So I couldn't have done it before because I didn't see what I see now. And I had to actually keep having the experience of seeing that it actually was effective. And then it just occurred to me that from seeing other people that are not, that I don't think are as effective as they could be, who understand the three principles and are trying to use this with others. I've had experiences where I've seen that they aren't as effective as they could possibly be. And it just occurred to me that, well, I wonder if we could, you know, whatever I know now that I didn't know then, I wonder if we could all get into that state together so that we could see the art of it together. So that's why.
I'm glad I asked. So how are we doing? Any other questions from people that have been bubbling up to the surface? And I mean, we're at the hour now. I was hoping if you're okay to go on for another 10 minutes, if you're okay with that, Jack.
Well, only if there are other questions.
If there are other questions.
Yeah. I just have to say that I'm about to find out whether I am going to be closing on buying a new house in Florida. And I actually don't know as of this moment whether the closing that is supposed to happen on the 31st is going to happen or not. and talk about the three principles. Last night, when I found out it might not happen, because there are two things that need to happen in order for it to happen. One is I need to be interviewed by the condominium association, because it's a condo. And the second thing that needs to happen is the United States Internal Revenue Service has to produce some documents that they've been slow in coming up with. And if either one of those two things don't happen, then it's not going to happen. So last night, when I found this out, I was so bummed out about it. You know, I was, it wasn't as much bummed out as I felt defeated. I had worked so hard to get everything into place. I already have my plane tickets to, fly down there and go to this closing. And, it's just, oh. And then this morning I woke up feeling great. And nothing about the situation has changed. Now, if that's not the three principles in action, I don't know what is. What changed? Just the way that internally, I guess I had a thought of whatever's meant to happen will happen. However it's meant to come about will happen. If it's meant to be, it will be. If it isn't, it isn't. And I didn't go out of my way to have that thought, but the fact that I had that thought put me in a different state that's more pleasant. And I'd rather be in a pleasant feeling than a defeated feeling. So I'm going to gravitate toward that because I see that as a possibility now. But last night, you couldn't talk about choice. You couldn't have told me that I had a choice. if you tried to tell me I had a choice last night, I may have thrown a frying pan at you or something. But this morning, it'll just be. So that's why I'm not going to be able to stay on for too long, because I told them to give me a call late in the afternoon, and I'll find out what I'm doing.
Okay. Well, I think that was evidence, for me, that's evidence of Jack's practicality in the moment. Okay, so if there are no other questions, you can still wave your hand madly if you want to get a question in there. Oh, yeah. Oh.
Okay.
I see one from Claire. Hang on. You're unmuted, Claire.
Great. Hi, Jack.
Hi,
I just
Claire.
wanted to say, actually, thank you so much for sharing that, because it's very easy along the way to get to a point where you think that stuff shouldn't happen for you anymore. And whilst you know intellectually that that can never be so, it's great when somebody who's been around it for so long, like yourself, freely admits that there are times when you just get really tied up.
Wow, what pressure it would be to have to stay in a good state all the time. You know, I've said this before, that the three principles are not a prescription for how to live a good life or how to live a healthy life or anything. They're a description of the way that it works. And so the three principles were working perfectly when I was in a state of defeat, and the three principles are working perfectly when I'm in a state of okay about whatever happens. They are always working perfectly because our thinking, no matter what it is always coming into our consciousness and always giving us a real feeling of whatever we're thinking. And if we happen to think bummed out thoughts, we're going to be bummed out. It's perfect. There are no exceptions. And if we happen to be thinking thoughts of peace and love, we're going to be feeling peace and love. There's no exceptions. And so I remember early on, people thought that this was about how to be in life. And I remember somebody who was, had been around the principles for a lot longer than I had. She said, it's such a relief to know that we don't have to be happy all the time. I mean, she actually had this idea from listening to people talk about the three principles that you had to be happy all the time. Now, it just so happens that the more we understand the three principles and how they work, we have less tolerance for being down in the dumps. So we don't want to stay there for that long, because we know we're just making it up and getting caught in the illusion of the moment. But yet, and we also know, there's this unbelievable, pure spiritual energy that contains peace and love and wisdom that we have equal possibility to be at any moment. And the more we point ourselves in that direction and know what's going on when we're not there, the more fine we're going to be. So I don't beat myself up when I get down in the dumps. That's just the human condition. I was telling a couple of people over the last couple of days that my new book is going to be called Seduced by Consciousness. And that's what happens. We really do get sucked right into it because it looks so real. And there's nothing that's going to talk us out of it until we see new.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are you okay for one or two more, Jack? They've suddenly come.
One more.
One more, okay. I'm going to unmute. I'm going to unmute Lisa, and then maybe if I'm going to, after you go, if you go, I'm going to stay on, and if people want to talk to me about the Greek retreat in June, that would be great, because I know there might be some questions. Amanda has a question about that. Okay.
Okay, great. And I just want to say that I would love to stay on more. I'm sorry, but because of the other thing that I mentioned, I'm just expecting that call, and I just want to get in the right place for it. Okay.
Okay, you're unmuted, Lisa.
Okay, thank you. No, Jack, it was just when you were talking about the deep listening, and I've heard this many times before that the deep listening is something that comes to us. We succeed with deep listening if we really are quiet in our minds.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that I know a couple of times where I haven't been quiet at all in my mind, but I still got a fantastic answer. And I think that and it was in a position where I really needed help. And I was so stressed, but I still got, an answer. So my question is, if you think that you have to have this quiet mind to get connected to, because I'm not sure about that.
No. Thank you. Okay. So we were talking about preparing the mind to be open to new insight. Like, what's the best state of mind where you could get new insight that you can prepare yourself for? Because if you see what you're talking about is the mind, even though it's busy, clears in one instant. Boom, clear. New insight comes out of the clear, even if you can't even, it happens so fast, you can't even pinpoint the moment of clear. But it's true that when I was working with Tom Kelly to, we do many papers together for psychological journals that we try to get published. And so we put together this path of how you get from, how people get from 3 principles understanding to changed experiences in life. Yeah, how do you get there? What's the path? So we were trying to identify the path, and we came up with 2 things. That one was thinking changes, and the other is we said at first a quiet mind. Then we realized it's not a quiet mind, it's a clear mind.
Yes.
So quiet mind really, really helps. But a clear mind is what really does it. A mind that clears in an instant. But I'd rather be in a one-on-one session with somebody in an empty mind than with a busy mind. because the chances of me getting something are higher. Not guaranteed, but what is guaranteed is the mind clears, the insight comes. Thank you for bringing that up, because it's something that we kind of, at least I kind of slough over, you know, when I say it, and what I really mean is what I just said.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. And by the way, I want everybody to know that that question was coming from one of the all-time great deep listeners. Lisa is one of the all-time great deep listeners. I can vouch for that.
I can vouch for that too.
Thank you.
All right.
So thank you so much, Jack. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being there. Love talking to you. Hope to see you. Hope to see you in Greece. All right. All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye now.